Explosions and gunfire were heard in Sudan's capital Khartoum as the army entered into the camps of the paramilitary forces with heavy weapons. The paramilitary claims that the army had surrounded one of its bases and had opened fire. Now, according to reports that are coming in, gunfire could be heard in several parts of the capital city of Khartoum and also other cities in Sudan. Media reports, in fact, suggest that the RSF, the paramilitary group under fire, has raided the Khartoum airport and has besieged it. Now, the RSF that has been in a power struggle with the army has said in a statement, and I quote here, "The rapid support forces were surprised on Saturday with a large force from the army entering into the camps in Suba and Khartoum and laying siege to the paramilitaries there." The move follows days of escalating tensions between the army and the RSF. The RSF emerged from the militias involved in the conflict in Darfur, which broke out nearly about 20 years ago, and has been accused of human rights abuses. It operates under its own legal code and chain of command. The RSF, in fact, joined with the military to overthrowing the long-ruling Islamist ruler Umar al-Bashir in a coup in 2019. The two forces then carried out another coup in October 2021. Relations between the military and the RSF have since deteriorated, forcing a delay in the signing of an internationally backed agreement with political parties for a 2-year civilian-led transition for free elections in the country. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is unfolding in Sudan at this moment as we speak, we're being joined in by Dalia Mohammed Abdul Munim, who's a former journalist and also a Sudanese citizen. She's joining us live from Khartoum. Now, Ms. Dalia Mohammed, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION and talking to us. Now, let me begin by asking you this. You know, the images that are coming out of Khartoum are extremely concerning. From what we are picking up, it appears that it is the Sudanese military and a paramilitary known as the RSF which are having a go at each other. And also it is being said that the airport in Khartoum has now been taken over by RSF. What is the latest on that front?
Thank you for having me. Honestly, there's a lot of back and forth as to what is actually happening because we're all staying indoors. We don't really have like confirmed information, but you can, I live near to the airport, so the sound of the gunfire and the artillery is very, very loud where we are.
Right.
But the one thing that we can confirm, because the RSF released a statement saying they've taken control of the presidential palace and the guest house of the head of the army, General Burhan, and the airports in Khartoum and two other cities.
Right.
But the army then released a statement saying none of this is true, and the head of the army is in safety. So we don't know exactly what's happening. There's a lot of back and forth between the two sides.
Right.
But it's very worrying because this escalation literally just happened within 24 hours. Because when I went to bed last night, the last thing that came out was that they had reached an agreement and that they will de-escalate.
Right.
But what happened this morning is anything but a de-escalation. It's really ramped up the issue.
Absolutely, indeed. Because what is playing out on the streets of Khartoum, the images that are coming in, Ms. Dalia Mohammed, it is apparent that the army, the Sudanese army, and this RSF paramilitary is in fact having a clear go at each other. Now, the question that I want to ask you is, now for the last several weeks, we've been reporting about the negotiations that were underway between the army, the RSF, which is a paramilitary, and also the civilian groups that are also involved in trying to ensure that Sudan, of course, makes its transition towards a civilian, democratically led government. But that now seems to have gotten completely derailed because the two big contenders in this power struggle, the military in Sudan and the paramilitary, the RSF, are quite literally at war with each other.
Yes, that is the elephant in the room, so to speak, because that was always the issue. How do you get these two powerful military sides to agree and to move to come together and to allow the country to move forward? There was a lot of massive differences between the two sides. And it escalated 24 hours ago when the RSF moved some of its troops into a base in Merawi, which is in northern Sudan, next to an army base where the Sudanese army and the Egyptian army have held joint, what do you call it?
Military drills.
Yeah, drills together. So that was the escalation. And supposedly they reached an agreement that, everything was fine. But this morning, what happened, the sounds that we're hearing in my house, it is like we're at war.
Right.
And it's quite frightening. But I think what's scarier for a lot of us is we don't know what's happening. We don't know if there's anything happening behind closed doors, if any of those the vested parties who were part of the negotiations, like the Troika of the EU, the United States, the UAE, Saudi, all those, the UN, is anything happening? Nothing is coming out. We don't know what's happening. We're just we're getting information according to people who live in certain areas, so they can see, army.
That's true, Ms. Dalia Mohammed, because the fact is the information that is trickling out of Sudan at this moment is in fact difficult to confirm as to what is being said, because there are claims and counterclaims that are being made by sources of the Sudanese military and also this paramilitary that goes by the name RSF. But Ms. Dalia Mohammed, I would want you to shed some light on this paramilitary, the RSF. How is it possible that when you have the Sudanese military, you have another contending force, which is again a pretty powerful force? It is dubbed as the paramilitary. Tell us more about the origins and what are its stakes in Sudan.
Yeah, well, the RSF has gone through a major facelift, so to speak. They were originally known as the Janjaweed, who the former President Omar al-Bashir set up to help him win the war in Darfur. And they became such a powerful force, such a powerful entity. They became an army from a group of mercenaries. They became an army, one of the best equipped, one of the best funded armies, and it's headed by General Hemeti. And he controls one of the largest gold mines in Sudan. So he's one of the wealthiest men in the country, so to speak. So he can support his troops, and they're very loyal to him. So in that sense, and he was also a very close ally of the former president, Omar al-Bashir, but he turned against Omar al-Bashir when the protests erupted, the people's protests erupted in 2018, 2019. And he said he's with the people. So his defection from supporting Omar al-Bashir to supporting the revolution somewhat paved the way that people began to see him as a savior or as someone who can lead us forward. But of course, when it comes to power, there's always going to be clashes.
Right.
And the army is the traditional, protector of Sudan, so to speak. They didn't like the fact that Hemeti and his men their power is growing so much, and they have such a big say in terms of politics, in terms of the security of the country.
All right.
So it all went ahead the last few weeks in terms of the negotiations. And we knew something like this would happen.
All right, absolutely indeed, Ms. Dalia Mohammed. Thank you very much indeed for joining us from Khartoum and getting us all those details. We're completely out of time. But this is, of course, the situation that is unfolding as we speak on the streets of Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, where it's complete pandemonium. Till yesterday, the RSF, which is a paramilitary, and also the Sudanese army were involved in negotiations. But now all those negotiations seem to have gone out of the window, and it is open war in the streets of Khartoum in essentially a battle to control the capital of Sudan. That is what is playing out this moment, and we'll of course be getting you details as they unfold. Thank you very much indeed again to Ms. Dalia Mohammed, who joined us live from Khartoum and gave us all those details there.
Thank you for having me.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.